Two free TV licenses approved, but Ricky Wong is the odd man out. Deadly earthquake rocks the Philippines. And the U.S. Senate edges closer to a deal to end government shutdown.
Good evening. The government has finally decided to issue two new free-to-air television licenses to iCable and Now TV. But the application by Hong Kong Television Network, led by Ricky Wong, has been rejected. Rani Samtani has our top story.
The Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development said the Chief Executive and Council had considered a wide range of factors before making today's decision. But Gregory So said the move to bring in new free-to-air television channels was based on one key consideration. That is, to introduce more competition for the healthy development of the TV market. Two licenses were granted to iCable's Fantastic TV and PCCW's Hong Kong Television Entertainment.
Fantastic TV will invest over $1 billion in the initial 6 years from the launch of the proposed service, whereas HKTVE will invest over $600 million in the initial 3 years. This will not only provide more program choices for the audience, but also create more job opportunities in the creative industries. This is the first time in nearly 4 decades that more competition is introduced in the free TV market.
They will be subject to similar licensing conditions to those of the existing channels, with an English channel to be opened within 24 months of the license being issued. iCable, PCCW, and City Telecom all applied for a license in 2009. City Telecom boss Ricky Wong has pointed out that he had invested a lot of money in bidding for the license, including the hiring of many staff members. But So said the amount of money invested was not one of the criteria the government considered when assessing the applications. Head of Shuyuan University's Journalism and Communication Department, Leung Tin-Wai, questioned why the government only issued 2 licenses. Leung said Hong Kong can accommodate more free TV channels. There is so much potential, he added, that even channels operating at a loss can survive. Both existing free-to-air TV stations have responded to today's announcement. TVB said the government had not yet clarified key issues, such as the optimal number of free-to-air television licenses for Hong Kong and the justifications for issuing the 2 new licenses. ATV says it's against the government's decision, saying it doesn't rule out taking further action. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has come under fire for the way he handled the Manila hostage crisis 3 years ago, and that's prompted calls for him to step down. But Leung insisted his government has done what is necessary for families of the victims. Stephanie Choi has more.
Pan-Democrats are stepping up their campaign in the Legislative Council to try to force the chief executive to step down.
I'll put forward a motion in tomorrow's debate in a vote of no confidence in Mr. Leung Chun-ying.
One of the reasons why they want Leung to step down is the way he's been handling the Manila hostage crisis. Another Civic Party lawmaker, Kenneth Chan, accused the CE of being passive and weak over arrangements of meeting with the Philippine president on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Indonesia last week. Chan also accused Leung of being irresponsible, calling it a disgrace to Hong Kong, and demanded that he come up with measures against Manila in Thursday's question and answer session in LegCo. But Leung maintains that his government is doing all it can to resolve the 2010 hostage crisis that left 8 people from Hong Kong dead. Amid calls for imposing sanctions against the Philippines, the chief executive said he's well aware that strategic planning is needed. He also emphasized that his government has been consulting the victims' families directly and maintaining close contact with them. Leung said Philippine authorities have replied to an email from the Hong Kong government about the hostage crisis, but added that he will only update the public when there's something worth mentioning. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
On government measures to cool property prices, the chief executive said today they will remain in place. This follows an increase in transactions in the past weekend after developers made promotional offers to prospective buyers to try to counter the cooling measures. Leung Chun-ying warned those offers, including stamp duty rebates, could have a negative impact on the property market. He said the cooling measures have been effective in preventing prices from rising further. Leung also called on lawmakers to approve legislation relating to those cooling measures as soon as possible.
In Beijing, the man behind the airport bombing in the capital in July has been sentenced to 6 years in jail. The defendant said he was only trying to draw attention to his plight of being crippled by security officials in Guangdong nearly a decade ago. But the judge said there's no excuse to endanger public safety. Partially paralyzed Ji Zhongxing was taken to the Chaoyang District People's Court today in an ambulance. His father and elder brother were also present. It happened on July 20th when Ji set off an explosion at Terminal 3 of Beijing Capital International Airport. Ji, who was in a wheelchair, had his left hand blown off in the incident, which also left a security guard slightly wounded. The court heard Ji had tied the explosives to his leg to avoid security checks at the airport, which indicates he had carefully planned the bombing. Ji's defense was that he was only trying to get authorities' attention after he was beaten and crippled by Dongguan security guards in 2005 while working as a motorcycle taxi driver, but was never able to get redress. But the court said fighting for justice must be done in a legal and orderly way, and that no one is allowed to endanger public safety in the name of human rights. Ji, a native of Shandong province, had faced up to 10 years in prison. The judge decided to hand down a 6-year jail sentence. The judge said he took into consideration that Ji had warned bystanders that he had a bomb so people wouldn't get hurt, as well as his cooperation with the prosecution. Responding to the verdict, Ji's brother insisted they will continue to fight the legal battle to the very end. Let's see which government leader will stand up and say something for us in the name of justice, he said. A new human case of H7N9 avian flu has been reported in Zhejiang province. According to authorities there, the patient is a 35-year-old office worker. He tested positive to the virus at the Zhejiang Provincial Center for Disease Control and Prevention. He was admitted to hospital a week ago and is now in critical condition. Of the 135 human cases of H7N9 avian flu on the mainland so far, 45 patients have died. Here in Hong Kong, the Centre for Health Protection is aware of the latest case and is monitoring the situation.
At least 85 people are dead and many more injured after a 7.2 magnitude earthquake rocked the central Philippines this morning. The quake was centered below Cebu, a popular tourist destination and one of the more densely populated areas in the region. James Aiken has more.
The earthquake struck just after 8 o'clock local time in the morning. It toppled buildings and historic sites and sent people spilling into the streets, causing stampedes as panic rippled through the region. Because it was centered inland, the quake did not trigger a tsunami warning, but aftershocks continued to spread terror amid the devastation. We were caught by surprise, this man said. The building collapsed as people were coming out of it. Another witness says she ran outside where she saw the electric concrete poles swaying like coconut trees. The damage was immediate and widespread in densely populated Cebu city. Cracked roads, cut power lines, crumbled and collapsed buildings. Historic churches were hit hardest, with the country's oldest church losing its bell tower. As emergency crews scrambled to the worst-hit areas and sifted through the wreckage, local flights and ferry services were suspended. At least 20 aftershocks rippled through the region, which is about 570 kilometers southeast of Manila. Offices and schools were closed for a national holiday, and provincial disaster management officers say that might have reduced casualties. The U.S. Geological Survey says the epicenter of the earthquake was 33 kilometers below the surface, deeper than a similar deadly 6.9 magnitude earthquake last year, also in the central Philippines. Strong earthquakes are not uncommon in the Philippines, which lies along what is known as the Pacific Ring of Fire. James Aiken, TVB News.
Hopes continue to grow that United States lawmakers can reach an agreement to raise the government's debt ceiling before it faces a potentially devastating default on Thursday. At the same time, they appear closer to approving government funding to end the partial shutdown that's seen 350,000 public sector workers laid off for 2 weeks. Alan Booknear reports.
After a day of intense negotiations, senators from both sides were upbeat. I'm very optimistic that we will reach an agreement that's reasonable in nature this week to reopen the government, pay the nation's bills, and begin long-term negotiations to put our country on sound fiscal footing.
Let me just echo the remarks of my good friend, the Majority Leader. We've had an opportunity over the last couple of days to have some very constructive exchanges of views about how to move forward. Those discussions continue, and I share his optimism that we're going to get a result that will be acceptable to both sides.
The two normally routine pieces of legislation have become entangled in disputes over President Barack Obama's health care overhaul and general disagreements over government spending. Visiting a charity not far from the White House, Obama was also hopeful the two sides could reach an agreement.
It doesn't mean that the differences between Democrats and Republicans go away. That's what elections are for. But between elections, we're supposed to be governing, and we're not supposed to be hurting the very people who sent us to represent them.
Officials have said the deal being discussed would raise the government's debt limit until the spring. It's not clear if it would permit the Treasury Secretary to employ steps to add additional months to the extension, something that has been done in recent years. Alan Bookney at TVB News.
Landmark talks are underway in Geneva between Iran and 6 world powers over Tehran's nuclear program. The two-day meeting involves Iran, the US, Russia, China, France, Britain and Germany. Iran is trying to assure the international community that it has no intention of making nuclear weapons. It's also under pressure to scale back its nuclear program in order to win relief from crippling sanctions. The European Union's foreign policy chief expressed cautious optimism going into the talks.
I hope that what we'll have here is a very productive 2 days, an opportunity to explore both the proposals that we have put on the table, but also ideas that are coming from Iran. I hope that in the course of that time there'll be an opportunity to really go into the detail and to explore the possibilities. And still ahead in the news. A Consumer Council warning about some toilet paper products. In Taiwan, a victory for Ma Ying-jeou's government. And Sarah Lee strikes gold at the East Asian Games.